This is the final segment in my teaching on the Gadarene Demoniac. I've already given many reasons why I believe the man in whom was the legion was satanically ritually abused. Next, we'll see what Jesus did and the final things that happened in this story. So Jesus commands the demons to come out, and they speak and say that their name is Legion, and they beg him not to send them out of the country. They ask to go into a herd of swine that was feeding there near the mountains. And so Jesus cast them into the swine, and immediately the swine, there were about 2,000 of them, ran down the hill and into the sea, where they drowned. And those that had been feeding the swine ran into the city and the country and told everyone what had just happened. And so the townspeople came out where Jesus was, and they saw the man in whom the demons had dwelt being in his right mind and clothed, and it frightened them. And they told Jesus to get out. They didn't want him there. The response of the townspeople to Jesus is interesting. After Jesus cast the legion of demons out of the man and into the swine, the townspeople heard about what was happening and came to see for themselves. Mark tells us that they came to Jesus and saw him that was possessed with the devil and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid, and began to pray him to depart out of their coasts. This tells us about the character of this people. One would think they would have been overjoyed to see this poor miserable man finally set free from his torment. There had to be no doubt in anyone's mind that Jesus was filled with the power of God and that he had performed a miracle. If this were so, why would they be afraid of him? Some have said it was because they lost their swine. I think it was more than that. There had to be amongst those people those who abused the man in their rituals, and others who were under their control. They were afraid not because of the swine, but because they knew they had come face to face with God, and Satanists regard God as their enemy. They didn't want to be exposed before him, or have to contend with the obvious truth that the power of God is far greater than the power of the devil. Here's another thought I've had about this, that 2,000 head of swine, that's a lot of pigs, and they represent a lot of money. Like, they were doing quite well there financially, and it may be because they abused the man to get the power to be successful financially. That's the way it works in Satanism. The reason they abuse their victims is to get power to be famous, and power to control others, and very much power to get money. So I think that there was a connection there, and when that they saw the man was no longer in that condition of abuse, they knew they'd lost the source of their power to be wealthy. And of course Jesus, when he sent them into the swine, made sure that they went down the hill and drowned in the sea. So all that they had done to be wealthy by using and abusing this man was now totally gone. Now, this is just my interpretation of this, but I think it makes sense based on what I know about satanic ritual abuse and how people use it to get wealthy. After this great miracle, the man who had been healed wanted to go with Jesus. Of course he wanted to be with Jesus. Who would want to go back to those people who had abused him and left him alone out there in the tombs? But Jesus' answer was no. However, the Lord gave him some instructions. He said, "Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee." At first glance, it would appear that Jesus was sending the man back to be with the people who had abused him. However, this is not the case. The man understood what Jesus meant, and his response was, he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. He departed. He did not stay where he had been. He went to Decapolis, the 10 cities of the district of Syria, and testified of the great miracle Jesus had done for him. When Jesus said, "Go home to thy friends," He did not mean what appears to us on the surface. Something has been lost in the translation. The Greek word for friends used here is "sos." "Sos" is not the usual New Testament Greek word for friends. The word friend or friends is in the New Testament 35 times, and philos is almost always used. This passage is the only place in the New Testament where "sos" is used to mean friend. "Sos" really means thine or thine own, with friend only being implied. So Jesus was really saying, "Go home to thine own." And who were thine own to this man? Other believers. He was now part of the family of God, and other Christians or believers were his friends. There were many believers in Decapolis, as seen in Matthew where we read, "And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan." This man had a new family, the family of God, and he departed to those 10 cities, where he had many new friends and a whole new life awaiting him. It is often needful for satanically ritually abused persons to forsake their family of origin and find a new family, because very often their abuse came from their own parents, siblings, aunts and uncles, etc. This is one reason why it is important for the church to understand satanic ritual abuse and embrace those who are recovering from its effects. We need to become their family. Holidays can be especially difficult for them, because not only do they no longer have an extended family with which to celebrate, but also, after having memories, they realize they were abused on holidays. Any holiday is a satanic ritual time, especially Christmas and Easter. Some Christians have refused to believe in the existence of satanic ritual abuse because they say it is not in the Bible. However, it is seen in the Old Testament, where parents made their children pass through the fire to the god Molech. Even the Israelites were known to do this because they did not heed the warnings of God to not intermarry with the nations around them. Because of intermarriage, they began worshiping pagan gods and even got involved in child sacrifice. This practice did not pass away with the coming of Jesus, and the story of the Gadarene Demoniac gives us a view of Jesus healing one of its survivors. This should bring hope to all who have been so abused, because we can see here that Jesus understands and is able to heal anyone who has been satanically ritually abused. The teaching you have just heard is from my book, Restoring Survivors of Satanic Ritual Abuse, Equipping and Releasing God's People for Spirit-Empowered Ministry. I have a website at www.hispresenceonline.org, where I have many articles about satanic ritual abuse and ministry, also articles about the end times, and more videos. My name is Patricia Baird Clark. Thank you for listening.